to the channel. Today we are working on a 2006 Toyota Tacoma. I'm going to get you guys up to speed here, kind of what's going on. This came in late yesterday afternoon, right before closing time. Customer said that it would not start. There was no, he would go in, turn the key on, no lights on the dash, no chimes dinging. He said that, you know, to him it seemed like the battery was completely dead. So the customer at that time took out the battery that was in this vehicle and put in a known good battery. So he put in a known good battery. The vehicle did started up one time, and since then, again, it was a no crank. But he did have lights on the dash. So he ended up taking that known good battery out, putting in the original battery, and got it towed over to us. So that's kind of the backstory of what's going on. So like I said, it came in yesterday afternoon, right before closing time. I walked out to the vehicle. With the multimeter, I noticed that the battery, that it was indeed, there was no lights on the dash. It was dead in the water. Tested the battery. The battery had 888 millivolts in it, so the battery was completely depleted. So my question is, what would cause that battery to be that low on charge? Okay, so I grabbed a jump box, tried to jump it, hooked up the jump box. I was able to get the lights on the dash, go to start it, and you just hear a click, like a starter's going bad. Okay, so it's closing time. I had my service rider try starting the vehicle. As I tapped on the starter, fired right up, pulled it into the shop. That's where we're at. Okay, so to me, right now, obviously I haven't done any diagnostics on it, it seems like it's going to need a starter right off the bat. Obviously tapping on it, you know, trying to get it to start, and it did start up. So are we dealing with two different concerns? You know, what's causing the battery to go that low on charge? Oh, another critical thing that the customer did note, that he did say that he smelt an electrical burning smell. Okay, so that again, this is all good information, and this is all stuff that either the service writer or the technician needs to be getting from the customer. So the more information you get, the better it is for the technician. And this is something I cannot preach enough, and something that I deal with on a continuous basis, is the lack of information that gets presented to the techs from the service writers. And it's it's frustrating, to say the least. I've chased noises that weren't the customer's concern, because the lack of information that was written down. And, you know, talking to the customer, they're telling me that, oh, we told the service writer that the noise was while hitting the brakes at 45 miles an hour. You know, these specific key elements of, you know, to duplicate the concern, and all that gets lost in translation. So I don't want to go into this, because that's a whole nother rant. And if technicians know, I mean, it's very, very frustrating. So the more information you can get, and the more information you can actually put down on the RO, the better it makes life for the tech. Okay, so just remember that. So yes, there was a burning smell underneath the hood that the customer stated. So like I said, got the vehicle in. So that's kind of where we're at. The battery is disconnected because I'm assuming that there's draw in the system, because the customer said they went into work, drove the vehicle to work. It drove just fine. Came out in the afternoon, actually for lunch. Came out for lunch to go in the vehicle, and it was dead. So yeah, that's kind of where that's at. So have the battery disconnected, because I didn't want it to lose the charge overnight. Instead of charging that battery up, I went ahead and grabbed one of our batteries off the shelf. So it's a fully charged battery right off the shelf, and that's kind of where we're at. So I want to first, see what kind of draw is on this system. So we could be chasing two separate issues like I was saying. We can be chasing a draw issue or a starter issue, or I don't know. I mean, it could be one and the same issue. I'm not sure about that. We are gonna find out together. So yeah, let's get on into this. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is check the amperage draw. Okay, so let's get this battery hooked up and let's take a capture with the Pico and see what kind of amperage that this vehicle is pulling. Okay, so let's do that. So we're going to open up the Pico program. And I have to say, I just hooked up the battery, but it does smell like there is something electrical going on. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of some of these other channels on here just to kind of clean up the screen. Get rid of B, C, and D. We're just going to be focused on channel A right now. Actually, we can, let's go 2 channels. We'll get battery voltage as well, okay? So channel A, I'm going to be using an amp clamp. And the clamp I'm going to be using is the Pico 30. So we are going to want to pick that probe for channel A, coming up here, go down here to the 30 amp current clamp. We are going to pick that. I like to add some more time onto the screen with the Picos because you can always zoom in, you can't zoom out. I like to see the whole kind of picture on the screen at one time. So I'm just going to add some time. So there's about 1:40 up on the screen right now. Okay, so channel B, we're just going to use, we're not going to change any of the settings, plus or minus 20 volts. Okay, so let's go ahead and get this hooked up. Kind of, we'll set you guys over here. Okay, I put a 0 mark up on the Pico screen and zeroed out the clamp. You do have to rotate this in order to zero it out, so I got it pretty close to 0. Got it set to the 20 amps. Okay, we're going to put this around the battery. Notice that there is an arrow. Okay, so this is conventional theory on how you want to set it up, and we are going to have the arrow going back to the negative. And I don't know if you guys saw that, but I will show you what's going on that screen in here in just a second. Let's get a voltage measurement on the battery. All right. So red channel, we have voltage, okay, hooked up to the battery just right across the terminals. We have the 30 amp clamp hooked to the battery cable. All right, so right now it is showing the battery is at 3.8 volts. Now mind you, I just grabbed this battery off the shelf. Try to get this cursor on here. 3.69. Okay, so we'll get to that here in a second. So obviously the battery is low. Now is that a bad battery on the shelf, or is this amperage from this vehicle pulling this down? Now if you notice the blue trace, it's continuing to drop, but right now this thing is pulling, bring that cursor down for the blue channel. If you look up here, 21.98 amps. That's a huge amperage draw. So that would explain, you know, this vehicle doesn't, obviously, just hooking the battery up with this kind of draw, you can see it is slowly starting to drop. But I mean, 21 amps is huge. So these cables don't have to be hooked up that long in order to bring that battery voltage down. So, you know, let's just add some more time on the screen. Do 8 minutes. Okay, so you can see the blue amperage is continuing to drop, but we're still close to 20 amps. I'm going to hook up a battery maintainer on it, bring the battery voltage up so we can continue on with our diagnosis. So if you noticed, okay, so this is a good one. So obviously I hooked up the battery maintainer. The amperage spiked. It actually went over 30 amps and then slowly starting to come back down. So we still have a huge amperage drop. But hooking up this maintainer, you can see on the red channel where the voltage actually dropped. So having that kind of draw, we should be able to see something on a thermal imager, obviously. And I can actually feel on this cable how it is a little bit warm. So we're going to use the snap-on thermal imager. We're going to see where this amperage draw is coming from. Let's see here. Oh, you know what? I think we found it already. Let it calibrate. Now it may be hard for you guys to see. Yep. Let's go around here. All right. Now, if you guys can make that out down there, that's the alternator. And if you can see the heat signature coming off of that, that thing is, this vehicle has not been started today. It's 5:30 in the morning. That thing's 121 degrees. Okay. Now, would it pick up this cable or anything? To me, it felt like that cable was a little warm too. I'm not really picking up the cable. All right, look at that battery. That battery is working pretty hard right now. And the reason it's probably not picking up this cable, the cable I'm trying to pick up is, I can feel some temperature on this cable right here, but since the battery is actually warmer than this cable, it's not picking it up that good. If I can get just that cable in the screen. Nah, it's not gonna do it for me. Alright, so as you can see, the amperage is slightly starting to come down, but that's still a huge amperage draw. It's coming from the alternator. Okay, so that alternator, right off the bat, that alternator is bad. That's pretty much a direct short. I mean, that thing is pulling some juice. Vehicle is not running. It should not be pulling that kind of juice. That is gonna kill these batteries within minutes, obviously. I mean, this battery needs to be charged now, and it was a brand new battery. So I think the next step is to go in and actually disconnect the red hot wire, the power wire that comes from the battery to that alternator. So if we disconnect that, this is kind of my thinking here, because either we have two issues or we have one issue. Is the alternator drawing this many amps and it's causing the starter, it's pulling, so the alternator pulling amperage is taken away from the starter starting amperage, if that makes sense. That's right? Starter amperage, yeah, okay. So my theory is, or my thinking is, if we disconnect that main battery feed to that alternator to eliminate that amperage draw on the system, will that fix or take care of the actual starting issue, the clicking? Okay, so mind you, two separate issues. Obviously there was no lights on the dash, the battery was completely flat when the customer came out. They put a new battery in it, they were able to get it started once. So when I went out there and I put a new battery in, when it got towed to the shop, it clicked after, so it clicked once I had full juice, and I was able to get it started by a couple taps on the starter. So is that a starter issue and the draw issue, or are they coinciding to each other, cause and effect? Is this amperage pull right here affecting the starter starting the vehicle? So let's disconnect that wire. Let's go from there. And I'm just going to disconnect the battery first. So I got the main battery feed to the alternator disconnected. Oh, sorry guys, grabbing a light. Okay, if you can see this right here, this is the main battery feed to the alternator, and I just simply have it laying here because I'm going to hook the battery back up. And we don't want to do any kind of welding and stuff, so I have that out of the way of any metal. And we're going to hook this battery back up. I do have the charger on it, and let's see if there is still an amperage draw. So if you guys notice on the screen, got everything else hooked back up. Now if you notice, the first thing that you should be seeing is that battery voltage. Okay, so I do have the maintainer on there. It's actually at a charge rate right now. It's the Schumacher maintainer, but it also can charge the batteries as well. And that is, let's get a measurement here. Slowly rose a little bit more. Battery is, if you look up here, 13.53 volts. Okay, so that's charging up, but if you notice the blue, the current, there's hardly anything on it. Okay, so we can actually, instead of going from a 30 amp scale, which before you see this line that was right here, it was right around the 20 amps. So I mean, that's a huge difference. So I mean, honestly, we can go into the millivolt range and see now what it's drawing, which it should be under 50 should be under 50 milliamps. But honestly, I'm not even going to worry about that right now, because just hook the battery up. I'm not sure on this Toyota how long it takes for all the modules to go back to sleep. To me, that right there, that was the main concern as far as the amperage drop. Okay, so that, it needs an alternator. Plain and simple, alternator is bad. Okay, as far as the battery that was in this vehicle, that's going to have to be charged up and retested to see if that battery is still good or not. Because like I said, the battery that's in there, the battery that was in there had less than a volt in it. Okay, so but now the starting issue. So now that we eliminated that amperage draw on this system, do you think the vehicle will start, or will that starter continue to click to where we have two issues? So only one way to find out, and that would be to start it. So let's give it a shot. Oh, before we do that, we'll go back over here with the thermal camera. Okay, you can see that starter is still hot. It's still got a heat signature coming off of it because it got warmed up from that amperage draw. So it will take a little bit for it to cool down. But it is right at 100 degrees, which I can't remember what it was at before. Alright, so let's start this vehicle. Let's try to anyway. It starts. It starts. All right, so this vehicle starts from disconnecting that alternator starting cable from the alternator. So one thing to note, you ever put a battery in or you ever disconnect your battery cables on a vehicle and it attempts to try to start and it stalls, that's normal. Okay, keep trying it. There's some relearns for the throttle body and everything else that the computer's trying to do at that time because it loses that kind of memory. So that start stall, that was a normal issue after a battery disconnect. But it did start up, it ran. Obviously the battery light is on because there's no juice going to the battery cable to the B+ post on that alternator. So I could have sold them, you know, it needs a starter, needs an alternator, but in reality this was one issue that caused other issues. The battery draw at 25 to 30 amps from the alternator was depleting the battery, so causing the battery to go flat. But on that same note, even putting a jump box in, or putting a jump box on it, or putting a new battery in it, was still having an issue trying to start the vehicle. And that was from that amperage draw from that alternator. So does not need an alternator. Possibly could need a battery. We're gonna have to charge it and retest it, but that's it. I mean, it needs an alternator for this concern. While I did notice when I was in there looking at the alternator, this is something that Mike, the flat rate master, mentioned. I'm not sure if you guys can make that out or not, but there are starting to be some hairline cracks on that belt. So it's always a good call if you're replacing an alternator or replacing a belt tensioner or a belt pulley, or if you're doing anything where the belt is coming off, you know, it's a good call, depending on mileage and stuff. Obviously, you know, use discretion and stuff there, but it's typically a good call to recommend a belt at the same time. It's another one of those CYAs, you know, cover your ass. All right, after repair, we got the battery voltage, 13.1 volts, amperage, 0.1 of an amp. New alternator is installed. Battery positive cable is hooked up. So this is a fix. Let's actually go ahead and start it up. Let's see, we are charging 13.9. You can see the alternator amperage. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. This not too difficult, but just goes to show that one issue causing multiple issues, and we got it figured out with time to spare. So thanks for watching. Till next time. Oh, before I forget, went to Pennsylvania. I don't know if you guys can see that. Went to a training class, Super Saturday, in Philadelphia, or right outside Philadelphia in Pennsylvania, where there is just the top instructors, the top technicians from around, I'd say from around the United States, but that's absolutely not true because it's around the world. Steve Scott from Simply Diagnostics had 14 of his UK guys out there. There was people from all over, and it was just absolutely incredible. It was one of the best experiences I've ever had, and the training was amazing. I met some great people, other YouTubers to technicians that I network with on the Facebook groups and everything else, and this will be a yearly tradition for myself to be going to this Super Saturday. So you guys out there, if you have not been to this Super Saturday, look into it. Go to ASA Super Saturday, look it up, okay? It is, like I said, it is just absolutely incredible. The networking that goes on there, the friends that you meet, and the friends that you build there. I mean, it's awesome to be around so many technicians that have the same kind of drive and passion as you do. And that's something that I struggle with daily, because anybody that works in this field knows that, you know, there's about 1% of the guys that truly have a passion for this industry, that they live and breathe it. When I'm not at work, I'm networking automotive. I mean, my mind does not stop thinking about cars, or I mean, it just doesn't. I mean, I got a one-track mind, and that's where it's at. So I don't want to go on too much, but Super Saturday is an amazing event. There's also Vision that you guys want to look into. There's also the TST big event. There's multiple training all over the country. And the thing is, get to the training, guys. Whether it be a local training, whether it be out of state, like, don't make excuses. Just do it. It is gonna just open up so many doors for your career that it's incredible. If you feel like you're stuck and you don't understand these vehicles and everything else, you need to go to training. I mean, even the top of the top guys, Scanner Danner is there. Why does Scanner Danner need training, people think? It's like, he wrote a book. I don't need training. You know, he had somebody tell him that, why are you here? You wrote a book. And his answer, hey, the educators need education too. Where do you think they go to get it? This is one of those seminars that it was just, like I said, the top instructors, the top technicians, the passion, the drive, the love, the camaraderie. It was honestly on point. So, guys, I really do appreciate it. And until next time, we'll talk to you later. I'm signing out.